Hello, and welcome to Inside the Avatar Studio. Inside the Avatar Studio brings together innovative leaders from the virtual technology frontier to discuss perceptions, perspectives, and predictions of what being virtual means in today's society. Guest speakers discuss current issues and trends surrounding the implications of virtual experiences based on their own areas of expertise and subject matter. My name's Kevin Feenan. I will be doing the introductory part of today's program. It's a perspectives piece, a little bit in terms of what's happening with Rockcliffe, and then Zinnia will be introducing our main guest, Coughran Mayo. Hopefully this will be a wonderful program today. I wanted to start off, first of all, by bringing people up to speed on a few things that have been happening here at Rockcliffe. The biggest thing, obviously, that's happening is our conference coming up this November. So there's three things that we're trying to do with this particular conference. We want to differentiate between new technologies in education. We want to discriminate between different types of digital literacy skills. And we want to transform how knowledge is transferred to students in a very experiential way, using both augmented mixed realities and virtual realities. This is going to be a very experiential program. There's going to be a lot of workshops, there'll be games, there'll be discussions, there'll be a lot of networking. It will be very small and very intimate. The number of seats are limited, so we're really recommending that people really get their registrations in as soon as possible. The program itself is going to be very dynamic, and it's going to be very key to staying relevant in today's environment. One of the things that we found in a conference that I've just recently come back from is that there's a lot of people out there that are trying to feel their way even now through what all of these technology changes that have been happening over the last 10 years really mean for the educational field. So the more we get together, the more we have these discussions, the more we have hands-on workshops where you can actually, we're not just talking about it, but we're actually doing it, right? Those particular types of things are actually going to help people become far more relevant and more engaged with their students, whether it's K through 12 or it's post-secondary adult learner education. In either case, you really want to attend this particular conference to be remaining relevant in your particular field. We have two wonderful keynotes. We have Dr. Chris Haskell from Boise State University, who'll be presenting at the conference. We also have Dr. Pamela Redmond from Touro University. So we're very fortunate to have both of those on our conference for this particular year. Plus, we've got a lot of other colleges and universities. We've got people from Purdue University, from the University of Texas, from Peninsula College, and then a few people from within and around our Second Life and Open Sim communities here, including obviously from Rockcliffe University and from the Community Virtual Library. So it's going to be a very dynamic program. I think it's going to be a very engaging and interactive experience, and I highly encourage people to come out and register. There's also still time to submit an infographic submission. This is our version of a poster presentation. This allows people, if you can't come out to San Francisco and attend in person, this also gives you an opportunity that you can present virtually. We will have a virtual option for the conference. Obviously, the most engaging experience will be in person, so you'll really want to get one of those coveted, limited spots that we have available for being at the Fort Mason Center. And we were just there, actually, myself and the programs chair. We were there about a month ago, and I'll tell you something: the San Francisco Bay Area is just absolutely stunning, and the spot that we've selected for this conference is just an incredible spot to have a conference at. So again, I'd really like to encourage people to both submit an infographic, tell us about your organization, tell us more about what it is that you're doing, how it is that you're using these particular types of technologies and engaging with students, right? We're really hoping to get a good, well-rounded selection of infographic submissions to the conference for this year. If you want to find out more information, you can go to rucc.compcenter.org. 2018 future present. I realize that's a mouthful. I will put the link in the YouTube channel once the video goes up. And like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of people there this year. A few other things that are happening at Rockcliffe. It's not just about the conference. It's not just about inside the Avatar studio. We're moving forward with our digital course instructor training. We've had a few setbacks while we've been getting a couple of other things sort of prepared, but you'll find that the digital education preparedness course is going to be kicking off again this September. And we encourage people to register to that particular course. And hopefully before the end of this fall, we will have the virtual immersive environments program ready to go. It's about halfway ready right at this point. And, I am hoping that we will have it ready, by September, October timeframe. So that's something else that we will be looking for. Initially, we'll be looking for people to help us out to audit that particular program the first couple of times that we go to teach it before we actually put it onto the schedule as a regular activity. So no fears, the digital instructor course training is still happening, and you'll see it start to pop up on our calendar starting in September. Other things that are happening at Rockcliffe, you're going to see a lot more discussion forums with regards to education methods of digital literacy, virtual and augmented and mixed realities, and a lot of some new discussion forums and opportunities that tie into various different areas of research. I just came back from a conference in Montana with the Immersive Learning Research Network Group. They've got a wonderful little conference that they do. Again, they want to keep their conference small as well. It's a lot of PhD and graduate students that attended that particular conference, but they actually put a lot of really, really solid information together as far as that particular conference goes. There's anybody that does a lot of these education conferences, you probably realize that some of the larger conferences that you go to, quite often some of the information that gets presented there is several years out of date. Not so this particular conference, and it was a really, really good and dynamic experience. We're going to be bringing some of the information and some of the lessons that we learned and some of the networking people from there. There were a lot of new people that we met, so there'll be a lot of new faces coming into Rockcliffe as we move forward. We've got a lot of interest, while we were at that particular conference. One of the other things that you're also going to start to see, and hopefully this will either be in August or September, is as part of the Inside the Avatar Studio, we're going to start to have another little feature that will be included as part of this, which is truly a shout out to our community members and to our professional members. It's an opportunity that we're going to be featuring the work and the projects that they're doing and how these virtual environments, mixed realities, augmented realities, how these things are benefiting them in terms of what it is that they're doing. So we're really hoping and we're really looking forward to having a lot of those particular projects sort of brought to the forefront. And I think everybody will be very excited about a lot of the things that our members are doing. So again, this is a new feature that we're hoping to introduce into the mix in the next couple of months. Obviously, I want to encourage everybody to support Rockcliffe. I mean, we have a lot of facilities and services here that we would like to make available, and including the opportunities, especially for those people who are looking to augment their CVs and their resumes, adding to their professional portfolio, recognition of service, contributing back to the community, and also offering your teaching expertise to others. Right? There's a lot of things that we have basically got your back on here at Rockcliffe, and we're really hoping that as more and more people continue to join our community and our professional membership ranks, that you'll start to see a lot more diverse sandbox environments. I mean, we have Second Life, we have Open Simulator, we're looking currently at Sine Wave. Not Sine Wave, Science Space. and a number of other different platforms. There's a lot of movement that's going on in these particular spaces, a lot of integration with cloud and big data and so forth. And really, we're really hoping to provide an environment here in which people feel comfortable to be able to come and to experiment. That's always been the primary goal of Rockcliffe, and our core members have gotten years of benefit, and also all of our social members, people that use our sandboxes. They've received a lot of benefit from the environments that we have here, and we're hoping to be able to continue to share for another 10 years. So that's basically the update that I have for right now. And I think at this point, I'd like to turn things over to Zinnia and Dick Dillon.
Great. Thank you very much, Dillion. That's a great update, and I'm so thankful to be here with you folks today and bring my friend, Dick Dillon, otherwise known as Coughran Mayo. Did I say it right?
You said it perfectly.
Yay. We were just discussing that having different names, people will pronounce them in different ways. And because of that, I suspect that we are unforgettable, right?
That's the point, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I remember, I haven't checked on this in a long time, but I remember probably after being in Second Life for 8 or 9 years, I looked to see if anyone else had chosen the first name Coughran, and I couldn't find a single one. So I thought, oh, good, unique.
Excellent. That's a perfect shout out for professional branding, right?
There you go. Excellent. Pick a name nobody can pronounce.
No one can pronounce it. No one else wants it.
You got a lock on it. That's right.
That's great.
I wanted to be, Joe Shit the Ragman, but that was already taken.
Already taken. Aw, dang. Well, that's perfect, because today our theme is innovation and tenacity in virtual environments. And one of the things that I usually do with our guests here is try to give them a heads up before they get in the hot seat, and put together some questions for them to answer and to look over ahead of time. So I thought, full disclosure, that you're not really in the hot seat. It's kind of lukewarm, right?
Warm seat. That's right.
There you go. Warm seat. So we had you on the Inside Avatar Studio back in 2011, I believe. And so a lot of things have changed, and they've changed for you, and they've changed definitely in virtual environments as well. So maybe you can sprinkle in some of the transition that you've gone through as well, and with my questions, please.
Sure. Happy to do that.
Excellent. So my first one is, how did you discover virtual worlds, and when did you know that you would build something revolutionary in them?
Well, the discovery part was interesting. I was not a online game player. I'm more of a New York Times crossword puzzle kind of person. And so I didn't have a whole lot of experience playing multiplayer games, shooter games, that sort of thing. Not to say I'd never done it, but it was rare and it wasn't a big hobby of mine. But my significant other tipped me off to Second Life. She had read an article about it, and she said, this is something that sounds like you'd be interested in it. And so I read up on it a little bit, and basically the message that was, this was, what was it, like a long time ago? Anyway, it was a long time ago.
A long time ago.
Many, many years ago, 4,175 days ago. So I did a little bit of reading on it, and the message that was sort of being put out about Second Life at the time was it's a virtual world that doesn't have a point to it. It's an environment you can come into. You can pretty much invent whatever you want. You can do whatever you want with it. You can wander around and see what other people are doing. And that did pique my curiosity. It sounded unstructured enough to be really interesting. So I created an account, and I got into Second Life. And I already had a 30 years approximately of history of working in the nonprofit world, and one of the first places I found to go to was I can't remember what they called it at the time, but I always referred to it as the Library Island. So it was a sim that had been created by some of the librarians who got involved early in Second Life, and it was informational and had some interesting things on it. But what I stumbled across that immediately caught my eye was TechSoup had a sign up there, a display up there, talking about the formation of the nonprofit commons. And yeah, Gentle helps me out with a little text there, Edu Islands. That's right. Thank you. And so I saw that there was a group that had been set up specifically for nonprofits to get together to talk about this whole concept of virtual worlds and building your own experiences and what can we do with this. And they had a regular weekly meeting, and so I went to the meeting and started attending the nonprofit commons meetings in their earliest incarnation, I think, and got involved pretty immediately with that group. And when the current build was being put together and we started opening up nonprofit commons to agencies to come in and put offices in, I had already learned how to do some building and construction, so I became one of the mentors on nonprofit commons, and it sort of all took off from there. You know, that got me hooked right off the bat, and having the ability to meet on a regular weekly basis with people, to interact with people who had good ideas, to talk about things while you were exploring this vast Second Life was a lot of fun and very interesting. And of course, as time went on, I started thinking about practical purposes that I could use this virtual world with in my work. And I had been working for many years in the behavioral health field, and specifically focused on working with people in alcohol and drug abuse treatment programs. And so I started to try to do some brainstorming about how we might be able to use this type of a platform to deliver services to people who needed them in that area of health or mental health. And it sort of all took off from there.
Absolutely. And that's our connection was through the nonprofit commons. That was the first place that I went to after I got my bob. I couldn't go anywhere unless I had the right haircut, you know.
Right, right.
You don't have that problem.
Me too.
You know? And because that's such a welcoming community and full of mentors that help people establish themselves within virtual environments, how did this experience that you had with the nonprofit commons inspire your work to develop? And let me see if I can pronounce it right. You did it again.
Innovation.
Yeah.
Well, what started out, again, as I said, I was exposed to a lot of people with really good imaginative ideas for, how to use these virtual online multi-user platforms. And so I put together some side programs that would allow interaction with clients who needed the types of service that the organization that I was working for at the time offered. And we were able to actually get a little bit of grant money to test these ideas out, and they worked well. It worked extremely well, and the clients enjoyed interacting inside a virtual environment. It solved a lot of challenges, real world challenges that people had relating to accessibility and transportation and the cost of, getting to treatment and that type of thing. We discovered very early on that a majority of the people who got services in the virtual world felt that they were protected in a way that they weren't when they had to go into a room full of people in real life. They didn't have quite as much tension or as much of a feeling of, people staring at them, giving them the side eye when they were talking about difficult things that they were confronting in their lives. So there was some really practical benefits to that. And so we had a couple of projects that worked pretty well. And I actually, after a year and a half or so of doing some successful projects, I went to the management of the organization I worked for, and I made them a proposal to create a new Department of Innovation in our organization and use it to develop new ideas such as the ones that I was putting together in virtual worlds and other ideas that use technology and sort of thinking outside of the box type of thing, which has pretty much always been what my job has been, is, don't think like everybody else. Look down the road, tell us where we need to be in a year or two, how are we going to get there, who's going to pay for it, so on and so forth. And so I made a full-blown proposal to set up a new department within the organization. And, to the credit of the senior management team at the time, they deliberated on my proposal, I think very seriously, and they came back, and essentially what they told me was, well, we like your idea, we'd like to try it out, we're going to give you 75% of the money that you asked for to run the project, and we'll let you use 75% of your work time to work on the project, and let's see where it goes. And I had to think pretty hard about that because it was a fair amount of money and certainly a big chunk of my time that they were willing to let me put into this. But in the long run, my conclusion was that the 25% of my time that they wanted me to continue doing the things that I had been doing, new program development, grant writing, and that sort of thing, would probably become 30%, and then it would become 40%. And pretty soon we'd be spending all my time doing what I was already doing and none of my time doing the things that I thought I really wanted to do. And that's just typical in the work that I've done in the 7 years or so since I started my own business. I've found that the highest utility that I have for my clients is that I come in and I have them sit down and show me their two lists, and everybody has two lists. One list is all the important things that they really ought to be doing, and the other list is all the urgent things that they feel like they have to be doing. And what happens is everybody ends up defaulting to the urgent list, and it takes up all their time and energy and resources, and they rarely get the really important things done. And those are the things that I do for my clients when they hire me now. And that's what I wanted to do at the organization where I worked. But I knew if I gave in on that 25% that continuing to take care of the urgent things, pretty soon I'd just be doing urgent things again and not important things. So I needed to make a clean break, and in 2011, I started Innovation, and it's been going well. As I'm about at the 7-year mark, and things are doing well, and I've been able to be involved in many interesting projects with lots of clients from all around the U.S. in particular, and a couple Canadian projects. And the thing that I like about it is that the work changes. There's always different and interesting and exciting things to do. Not everything that I do my consulting business involves virtual worlds. Not everything I do in my consulting business involves technology, although yes to both of those things. So it really was, I think, the becoming involved here in Second Life, the interactions that I had and the relationships and friendships that I've developed with people inside of Second Life and Nonprofit Commons in particular, gave me a lot of confidence. I think that I could move forward, do something quite completely different than what I expected to, and probably end up being fairly successful at it.
That's wonderful to hear, and I think that's one of the things that makes Second Life and other virtual environments so special, is because you kind of find the tribe that's not near you to support you and encourage you.
Well, you get the opportunity to, meet people from literally all around the world and develop. One of the things that I noticed from the early days in Second Life was, if you make the right friends inside a virtual world, they are true friends. I mean, you develop relationships with people that, rival anything you might create in real life, even though many of them remain virtual. It's kind of interesting. I'm just kind of looking around just the small audience we have, and out of the dozen or so people that are in the room, there's 6 or 8 of them that I've known inside of Second Life for probably 8 years or 9 years or longer. And the most interesting thing about it, I think, is that I've, with the exception, well, no, I won't say there's no exception. All the people that are here today that I've known for a while in Second Life, I've actually met at one time or another in real life. I've been to some of the old Second Life community conferences and met some people there. I've met people when I've just been traveling on business trips, and I know that I'm going to be somewhere that somebody who I already met in Second Life lives. We'll get together and meet up. I've actually probably met 40 or 50 people that I first became acquainted with in Second Life, and ended up meeting them in real life. But I have close relationships with individuals that I've never met face to face, and many of them are just as warm and genuine as ones that I have with people who I've actually had the opportunity to sit next to or shake their hands or have coffee with or whatever.
Absolutely. I see Dirk saying that he wants to be on your wall of fame still, which at the Nonprofit Commons you have an office space there, and
we call it the Wall of Shame, Dirk. It's not the Wall of Fame. Yeah, it's a wall of selfies that I've taken with people that I met in Second Life, but it's the real people. It's our real photos when we actually met. So, yeah, I've got a few dozen photos on there. Yeah, we can Photoshop you in there.
Absolutely. Well, and it strikes the importance of what you've experienced within this space, that you make the effort, and you reach out to people, and others reach out to you, and when we were developing a theme, I talked about wanting to have you on the show. That's a good picture, Dirk. You mentioned that one. We're developing the show that the word tenacity came to mind about you. Instead of ice cream, which was the second word.
Right.
But
I have some moose tracks in my refreezer right now.
Oh, damn.
Some things never change.
Oh, they don't. Okay, good.
There's only two kinds of days in the world: the days you have moose tracks in the freezer, and the days you got to go to the store because you ran out.
Today is one of those days I must go to the store.
Must.
So, when thinking about tenacity, you you've been able to demonstrate this determination within digital spaces. And, you've mentioned, building these professional alliances, maintaining friendships and everything. But do you feel like that determination and tenacity is a big part of your success within these environments and out?
Well, when you said you were going to ask me that question, I thought, well, that's a good word that you thought of. I don't know if I would have chosen tenacity.
It could have been stubborn. It could have been stubborn.
I don't know if I would. I'm not sure that either. Maybe so. I mean, I'm okay with it. I think those are positive words, actually, both stubborn and tenacity. And I do think that it's really easy in today's world and to pick up on some bright idea that's come along and run with it for a short while, and then if you hit a snag, or if some other shiny object comes along, get distracted and move on. And so the fact that I've continued to have involvement for over 10 years in virtual environments, including OpenSim, Second Life, Unity, and those types of things, I think is a positive thing. But probably more than that, and relating to the experience, the virtual online experience of a place like Second Life is understanding the value of network and relationships. And I think that one of the things that I've always felt that I'm very comfortable with and very happy about is my ability to network. I find I often say one of the strange things about my life is that I could sit in an airport or a shopping mall or some place like that and look around at all the people walking by me and think to myself, I don't know that I really care to meet any of these people. And yet almost everybody I meet ever, I find something to like about them. And so when I do have the opportunity to, do more than just walk past someone and actually sit down and, if you tell me your story for 10 or 15 minutes, you're probably going to hook me on something that I find interesting, and the chances are reasonably good we can end up having some kind of a long-term connection. Dirk's a good example. He sort of out of the blue 2 or 3 days ago just texted me on my phone. I don't think we probably had talked for 2 years, and I said, and I told him I was going to be on the show, and now here he is, here I am. Feels like we're in the same room together. We've been in the same room together in real life before, and it's, as they say, it's sort of like old times. But I like that that fact that I'm a highly networked person, and that I have lots of relationships, and I probably am not as diligent with any of them as I should be, but I also don't ever tend to let them die. I like to stay in touch with people, and I like it when somebody sends me a text, or when somebody gives me a call, and I get on the phone every once in a while and just kind of flip through my contacts and think, oh, I haven't talked to them for 6 months. I think I'm going to give them a call, and it usually turns out well. And again, this type of an atmosphere where you're, even though you're representing yourself via avatar, you actually, there's a real person, a real persona behind the avatars, and the tools that are available that allow you to have interactions with one another inside a virtual world like this are hard to match in terms of being able to expand your universe of acquaintances and ultimately friends.
Well, and the fact that, it's genuine and heartfelt, right?
My experience is very much so. And, I'm sure it's one of those types of things that you get out of it what you put into it. I think the people who come into this type of an environment with the intention of being genuine people and being of interest and potentially of assistance to others are going to attract those types of people to them, and their experience of the virtual world is going to be that it's filled with, happy and friendly and helpful people. And, probably all of us know of events and things that have taken place inside virtual worlds that weren't as pleasant and weren't as positive. And that's usually because whoever came in was intent on, creating mayhem and chaos, and they managed to do that, And so if that's what if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for trouble, you're probably going to find it. You're not going to find it here in this room. You're not going to find it in Nonprofit Commons. You're not going to find it in places that you and I hang out, Zinnia. But I'm sure it's available. If you want some trouble, you can find that. But if you want, real lasting relationships with genuine people who are going to become true friends of yours, I think it's not that hard to find that either.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Because people, bring with it, they have it in their inventory when they join us. And it's just like when people are reading an email, they build in their own emotions into those words. They make assumptions, and it's nice that we've been able to work within environments with education and nonprofits and so forth that are very genuine and kind and supportive in what we all do, and we all win because of that.
Yep.
So I'm still really jealous that you have the ice cream in you. So I'm trying to get over that. So one of the things I had asked you also about was, building a reliable brand, because, we talk about nonprofits and education quite a bit in these environments, but we're also, businesses. We have to, be able to have our feet in multiple locations. And as a business, having a reliable brand is very important. And you're very good at being social in person and through social networks. And I remember there's been times where when you were preparing to do something, you'd ask me what color tie should you wear on your avatar.
You're my color consultant.
Thank you. And I thought, like, that meant a lot to me, because that's what my profession is to help people with that. And it helped, also for you to continue the message of what your brand is. And so my question about that is, like, how do you find building a reliable brand has been beneficial for you within a virtual space and outside, not just within this space, so other social media?
Well, yeah, I do think that establishing my own business, I had to kind of focus in on, what I could bring to any engagement that I had with a client or a customer. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, that when I worked for other people for a salary, I had several different job titles, but in the end, my major job for every place I worked was figure out where we need to be a year from now, how are we going to get there, and who's going to pay us to do it. And that became sort of the mantra of my new business. When I would meet new people and they'd say, well, what do you do? I say, well, I help people figure out where they need to be a year from now, how they're going to get there, and who's going to pay them to do it. And it's easy to say, it's relatively easy to understand. And the beauty of that particular model of presenting yourself to people is it opens the door for you to do lots of different things. So I've done, as I said, many projects that involve building virtual worlds, not just for counseling purposes, but of teaching purposes as well. And I did a teaching project with a university and a hospital system, and I've done other types of social service types of things that didn't involve direct counseling, but more involved getting people connected with community resources, et cetera. But I've also done projects where I've helped people, build out new programs that would get them into new lines of business, expose them to new customers and clientele, give them new opportunities for revenue. Some of the work we do is just bringing people up to speed digitally. In the nonprofit world, we're generally not known as a universe that's on the cutting edge of things for the most part, and so I'm almost embarrassed to say you don't have to know a lot to know more than most of your clients do. So I qualify there. I don't know a lot, but I know a lot more than most of the people that I'm working with. So just trying to create that message that I wanted to give to people, and I have a website, and I've got pamphlets I send to people from time to time. But the bottom line ends up coming down to the two things I've already mentioned. The one that I just said about figure out where you're gonna be, how you're gonna get there, who's gonna pay you, and the other thing of the make a list of the important things and make a list of the urgent things, and tell me how many of the important things you've gotten to while you've been busy dealing with the urgent things. And I've really based my business on those two ideas. Is I can help in both those ways. I can help you take care of some of those important things that you're just never going to get around to. Because you're so busy putting out the fires that come with the day-to-day operation of your organization. And I can help you strategize fiscally, digitally, programmatically to move yourself down the road. First of all, maybe figure out where you want to be, and then help you see how you're going to get there, and how we can make it pay off for you.
That's fantastic. Of course, I imagine that you start a few fires down the road too.
Some of the things that I do create some turmoil from time to time, because I have one customer who has nicknamed me the candid consultant. He says, "You're the guy who comes in and tells us where we suck. And what we should do about it, and you don't pull any punches about it. And you don't worry about if we're going to kick you out of the room because we don't like what you said." And I said, well, somebody's got to tell the truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Somebody's got to say that emperor's naked.
That's right. Well, I started my career many, many years ago as a counselor in therapy and doing therapy. And one of the things that I learned from one of my early mentors was that a good therapist tells the unvarnished truth to his or her clients and doesn't worry about the consequences of doing so. And I can't tell you how many times when I was doing direct counseling work that I would say to somebody, and usually laughing sort of like that, as you seem to be under the impression that I need to have you as my friend. And I got to tell you, we could possibly be friends someday, but I'm not here to pick up friends. I'm here to tell the truth. And if you don't like the truth and it makes you not like me, that's okay. It's still the truth. And I sort of approached my consulting business in the same way. As I'm happy to go in with somebody and I'll do an hour or two sort of assessment session without even charging them any money. Sometimes if they're a long way away, we do it over the phone, or if I can get out to see him, I'd like to get out and see him. And we talk about, what's going on, what works, what doesn't work, and that sort of thing. And I give him a pretty quick assessment of what I think I can do for him. And it's usually not pulling any punches, just if I see some areas where I feel like they really need some serious help, then I tell them flat out, and will sort of let the chips fall where they may. And every once in a while, I think I talk myself out of work. But that's okay too. I've actually, I remember about three and a half years ago or so, I realized that I actually had reached a point in my business life that I had been looking forward to, which was where I told somebody that I didn't really think that I ought to work with them because I didn't think they would really appreciate what I would do for them, even though it was probably something that would be of value to them. And I turned down a job that could have paid me a fair amount of money just because I knew it was not going to go well in the long run.
Well, and that's so important, to not waste your time on those things and have them not
waste their time. I mean,
Yeah.
I could see, I could sort of see around the corner on that one, and I knew we were going to get to a spot about a third of the way into it where I was going to tell them some really hard truth, and they were going to tell me I was, full of beans, and I was going to have to leave, because they were going to be wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the lessons I teach my students is to figure out when someone's not their client and to gracefully leave it. I say you can abandon them. You might suggest someone else, but it's okay to say they're not your client.
I did spend a lot of time in the grant writing world, and I still occasionally will write grants, but probably more often now I do evaluations for other organizations to tell them if I think they should waste their time trying to write a grant or not. And a lot of times, a lot of nonprofit organizations in particular spend an awful lot of time chasing money that they're never going to get because they really aren't the right fit for the grant. They're not the right kind of organization. They can't meet all the needs. They hope that they can fudge a little or cut some corners or make something up and somehow be lucky enough to get the money. But my experience is, if you're not hitting the mark, pretty much straight down the middle in any competitive grant competition, you might as well not even get started on it because you're just going to waste a lot of time and energy and get nothing out of it.
That grant's really not into you.
That's right.
So one of my questions actually feeds into this is, so the application of innovation requires funding and imagination. What are the things that have surprised you that are barriers to achievement, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I think that, again, this sort of comes down to being realistic and honest. Most projects usually end up taking twice as much work and costing twice as much money as you thought they were going to. And one of the things I've certainly seen happen to a lot of people, and I've tried real hard to avoid it and been pretty successful in doing so, is people who want to do things on the cheap. And I'm talking about consultants like myself who will come in and they'll see an organization and they'll feel like it's deserving, or they'll feel like, oh, maybe I can, get a foot in the door with these people and do some business, and they'll bid a project low. They'll underestimate the number of hours. They'll let mission creep set in, where they put down a list of 5 things they're going to do, and in the first month the organization asks them to add 2 more things to the list, and then the next month they have them add another thing, and then they keep adding things without adding any money. And in the end, you either complete the project and you feel like you've cheated yourself somehow because you didn't price it correctly, or you walk away from the project because you see that it's just going to be this sort of endless whirlpool of moving further and further into doing things that you're not going to get paid for. So I've always tried to be really realistic about pricing projects, and that includes doing a good job of figuring out how much work you're actually going to have to put in on a project, not underestimating it, putting some good boundaries on what you're willing to let people change as you move along, and valuing your time. One of the things that is true for most people who are in my line of business is that you're going to spend about half of your time doing things that nobody's ever going to pay you for, whether it's finding new clients, writing proposals, learning things that are going to make you better at what you do, and that sort of thing. So, if you want to make whatever, pick a number. If you want to make $50 an hour, you better charge $100 an hour, because half the hours that you work, you're not going to get anything for. So you need to, make double that for the other half the hours that you work. And I think being realistic about that sort of thing is one of the things that I've kind of learned along the way, and learned early on that almost every project I've ever done, whether it's a virtual world project or anything else, usually takes longer than I thought it was going to, and costs more than I expected it to. And if you don't take that into account when you're preparing your proposals, you're probably going to be really unhappy somewhere down the road, even when the job's done and the check comes in.
That's fantastic advice for people to consider for their businesses, and also when people are approaching them to do projects.
Yeah, and then there's obviously things very specific to working in the virtual world too, because a lot of the clients that I've done work for are people who had never really come into contact with a multi-user online environment until they met me. And having a good demo space to be able to show people around and let them get a feel for what it's like to move around in a three-dimensional world and interact with people through text typing and through voice and that type of thing, and the different sorts of things you can build and interesting and amazing things you can do is very, very important. But one of the things that I've really learned, I think the hard way, is that the excitement that a lot of people will have when they first have their first experience with a virtual environment gets tested really quickly when you start to develop projects where they have to start putting in some serious work, learning how to use it and learning how to help other people learn how to use it. And you cannot minimize the amount of time and energy that somebody needs to put in to make sure that the end users are comfortable walking around in a virtual world. You can't just give people a web address and say, here, log into this space and wander around. You really need to have classroom sessions, and you need to have tutoring, and you need to have online helpers and that type of thing. And I think in the early days of doing projects, because I think I had developed this sort of love for the virtual worlds, I felt like, well, this is intuitive. Everybody ought to know how to do it, and they ought to be happy doing it and really see the benefit of it. But what I found is that you really have to do a lot more hand-holding and a lot more walking people through the nuts and bolts of, here's how you stand up, here's how you sit down, here's how you talk to people, here's how you send messages, and be with them while they're trying these things out, to make sure that they get the number of hours in that they really need, so that they can comfortably navigate the virtual environment and use it to the highest level possible, which is very high level indeed when you really know what you're doing.
Absolutely. And it's hard when people talk about that, there's a deep learning curve for people to join us in virtual environments where, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just so excited about learning something new. I want to do this. I want to do this. And I want to do this. I'm excited about it. But I also recognize that for other people, that's a barrier for them. That's difficult. That can be frustrating. And, you've also hit on the fact that there are so many great communities that can support along the way, even if they're not attached to a project that you might be working on. There are communities that will support people that we bring in so that they find out that they're not alone in learning how to do these things.
Yeah, and a lot of the projects that I've created in virtual environments, because of the need for confidentiality and protection of people's identities and things like that, I've built on separate platforms, walled gardens, so to speak, and not within Second Life itself. But I continuously recommend to people that they join Second Life, and I make suggestions to them of places where I've been in Second Life that I think they might find interesting, because, hey, there's a built-in community already. There's people I know that they're probably going to warm up to. There's things to do that they might find interesting. And every minute anybody spends inside any virtual environment is going to make the use of anything that I've put together for them, that much more effective, just because of the comfort factor they're going to have of getting around inside a virtual world.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense, and that's good to know that you invite people into this environment. So I know I have some other questions for you, but I also wanted to get a chance to ask the audience if they had any questions for you, and that you guys could put questions in chat if you have some for C. Anyone have any questions? Because I still have some, warm seat questions for Dick. And the audience is filled with a lot of people that have gotten to work with you over the years.
Yeah, they know all my stuff.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Well, then I'm gonna leap into another question for you then. So, because I know we tried to do it in an hour, but I know I get so excited about some things. So, you kind of hit a few things that I wanted to ask you about. So, so how important is play, fun, and laughter in your approach to implementation and inclusion in virtual spaces?
Well, I think that I tell a story that, and it's a very true story, that one of the things that one of the experiences that I had in Second Life fairly early on was I learned how to surf. So there's a lot of surfing beaches in Second Life, and you can go there, and if you don't already own a custom surfboard, they have little dispensers that'll give you a surfboard, and you paddle out and the waves come in and you get up on your surfboard and you move your avatar around, use your arrow keys, kind of reposition yourself and that type of thing, and try not to fall off the surfboard. And as these things happen from time to time, I would find myself sitting in my chair at my desk at my house surfing, but I was like moving around on my chair. I was like leaning backwards, leaning forwards, going side to side, actually physically doing stuff, and kind of getting a feeling like, this may be what surfing really feels like. And so and surfing was something I always wanted to learn how to do, but I had some problems with that. Problem number one was I live in Missouri, and we are not close to the ocean. And we are not close. There is no surfing on the Mississippi River, and so that wasn't a good thing. And problem number two was fear of death. So when I did go on vacations, and I do like the ocean, so I'd go to Southern California, I'd go to Florida, or been to a lot of places in the Caribbean, and find places where you could go surfing, I still had this sort of fear that I would. Well, actually, I had two fears. One was I would die, and the other one was I'd look real stupid. And the looking real stupid fear was worse than the death fear because, of course, if you die, you're dead, so you don't care. But if you look stupid, you're alive, and you got to live with that. So after I had surfed at Second Life for a year or so, I was on vacation in Costa Rica, and I saw this surf shop, and they had lessons, and so I went in and I arranged to have us take surfing lessons, and I learned how to surf in real life. And it was directly because of the experience that I'd had in a virtual world. And I used that story for a variety of reasons. One was surfing in Second Life was fun. Surfing in real life is fun too. The big difference between surfing in real life and surfing in Second Life is when you surf in Second Life, you don't ever get really tired. When you surf in real life, you get really tired because it's a lot of work, paddling out there and all that sort of thing. So that was important. The other thing was it proved to me something that I've used many times in talking to people about using virtual worlds for learning anything, learning knowledge, learning how to do something practical, getting counseling and that type of thing. And that is that just because it's happening virtually doesn't mean it doesn't really happen, and doesn't mean it isn't really mirroring in a lot of ways what happens in real life. So I learned that, and the thing was, it was fun both ways. Surfing in Second Life was fun, and I used to do it a lot. A lot of times if I was in world and nobody else was around, I'd just go to some surf beach and I'd go surf for 30 or 45 minutes and always had a good time. And in some of the builds that I've put together for clients, I've tried to build in some of the things that you can do inside virtual worlds that involve gaming. So, I built a hang gliding course that had gates like a slalom course up in the midair where you'd get on your hang glider and you'd have races with people and you had to go through these numbered gates and do things like that. I've built pretty intensively built out scenery where we put like a scavenger hunt type of thing. We hid objects in there, and we'd give people a list of all the objects, and they had to find the objects inside the forest and the valleys and nooks and crannies, and take a screenshot of themselves with the items to score points and that sort of thing. And not highly sophisticated. That you could certainly be more sophisticated than that, where when you found an object you could actually click on it and it would register somewhere. But that's usually not the primary purpose for what I'm doing, so I usually put really simple ways to have fun together. But I think that it's important that people have that opportunity, because once again, the experience that they have that's purposeful, whether it's, like I said, sitting in a counseling office or coming into a classroom to learn how to do something or learn some factual knowledge, if you've already spent a lot of time in the virtual space doing anything at all, you're going to be more comfortable doing the things that that the purpose was established for. And one of the ways to get people to come in and spend time is to give them something fun to do. So I think having fun in real life is really important, and having fun in your virtual experience is extremely important too.
Absolutely. I know one time that we went out on an excursion on one of your boats and it fell apart.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That was like the funniest thing that ever happened.
Every time it got over like 60 miles an hour, it just sort of disintegrated.
It totally did.
People would be flung everywhere.
It was so much fun. So Kai had a question for you.
Okay, I see that. Yeah, so I built some project. For a while I was building things with Unity, And I had a private contractor that allowed me to post up my Unity builds. But after a while, I went back to the Open Simulator version and just use Dreamscape Metaverse and buy sims that are private that I have complete control over who's able to get into them and who isn't, and you pay a fee every year for those types of things, and the good news is you've got somebody on the back end who's sort of running the servers for you and keeping things going, and you can shout out to them if you run into a problem, and they'll usually fix it pretty quickly. You don't have to get back in and sort of tinker under the hood so much and spend most of your time. You can spend most of your time just building things, and there's several purveyors out there that I know that people use, and asking around and finding out what people are happy with is probably the best choice that you can do in order to find a host for you. And if you get a little bit more sophisticated, you can, and you have the space. If you have a big hard drive or something, you can build your own and host your own things if you want to. So I'm not that ambitious or smart.
You are that smart.
Well, I might be that smart, but I'm not that ambitious.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? That was a great question, Kai, asking what other platforms he works with. Okay. So I'm going to ask one last question, and I don't want you to give away your secret sauce. Okay?
Ooh, okay.
Okay. So, what has been the most successful means of buy-in and leaping from thought into action into our virtual environments and platforms when you're working with people who are not familiar with it?
I'm just posting the name of the host that I use, so Kai has that available. I kind of alluded to this earlier. I think that the best investment and the most successful tool you can use for buy-ins is to have a exhibition space that you use just to show people around, to demonstrate the way you can build buildings, and you can landscape environments in ways that are pleasant and attractive for people. You can demonstrate how people interact with one another inside these spaces. Having your own private space that you can customize too. That's the other thing, is you don't want to completely clutter it up with things that you've pre-built, because you want to leave a little space behind so that if somebody has a very specific or particular need, you can build something for them kind of on the fly and show them what it's going to look like, and then tear it down later and use that space for something else. But I think having that ability to just invite people into your your demo world and be able to show them around, and also it sort of tends to showcase what you're capable of yourself. You show them things that you've created, you've built, you've put together, and or you've cobbled together or stolen from somebody. Not stolen, but some of the stuff we use is open source. Some of the stuff we use is open source. No, we do use open source stuff sometimes. If somebody can build something better than I can, I'm going to let them. But I think that that ability to give them a hands-on, come on in, meet with me. It's always fun, always interesting, and I think it's probably the best way to get people's imagination going and kind of get their juices flowing about thinking about whether this would be a good thing for them or not.
Excellent. Well, you've been a fantastic example and advocate for the work in virtual worlds, and make a big difference for all of us, because you've been successful and noted, and you also have a fantastic team that has supported you over the years.
Yeah, Brenna's out there.
Yay, Brenna!
She's out in the audience. Miss B.
Miss B. So we got B, C, and Z.
That's right, BCZ, and we have several others.
It's great to have such a fantastic team, and I'm really thankful for you to join us today. I'm sure some people might ask you, yeah, of course. Of course, I'm still going to be a little jealous that you have ice cream and I don't, but I can fix that.
That's remedy. Yeah, you can remedy that for about $3.59.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and did you have any questions for the audience before I wrap us up?
No. I mean, I'm grateful people showed up. I'm really happy to see some of you that I know so well and have known for so long, and I'm glad some new folks showed up too. And I hope that my rambling and reminiscing was of value to you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I sure appreciate it. And thank you, Rockcliffe, for sponsoring Inside the Avatar Studio. On August 8th, we have the team behind the incredible feature documentary, Our Digital Selves, My Avatar is Me. So I hope that you can join us that day. Thank you all, and have a fantastic day. And now I'm going to go get that ice cream.
Go for it. All right.